Bill Gates has pledged billions of dollars to help fight climate change. But why? In an interview with Time, Bill Gates reflected on the effects of climate change while also making some bold predictions about what needs to be done to handle climate change in Africa. In this video, we will tell you why Bill Gates believes rich nations must help Africa with climate change action. To begin, on September 25, 2015, 193 world leaders gathered at the United Nations headquarters in New York. They pledged to achieve lofty goals and targets to eradicate poverty, reduce inequality and injustice, and address climate change by 2030. As it stands now, the 17 SDGs have fallen far behind schedule, mainly due to the interruption of COVID-19 and the effects of climate change. The annual Goalkeepers reports from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation states that the world has to increase its pace of progress by a factor of 5 to meet the 2030 deadline. Seriously, right? Bill Gates, the founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has contributed to international efforts to combat climate change. He believes that wealthier nations' attention should be directed toward assisting developing countries in cutting emissions through financial aid and technology transfer. In an interview with Time, Bill Gates discusses the responsibilities that wealthy nations have to the rest of the world, especially in Africa, in preparing against the effects of climate change. Gates reflected on why rich countries should help Africa fight climate change. Despite the stresses caused by the post-pandemic economy and the conflict in Ukraine, the primary message that Bill Gates wants to convey is that Africa should be given priority on climate change. He emphasized, because it is almost millions of lives, Africa is more critical now than ever. The Times specifically asked Bill Gates the solution he's proposed developing countries should follow to contribute to climate change, and he gave a great answer which we will soon share with you, so stay tuned. At this point, we are specifically going to ask you to subscribe to this channel. This is a great deal for you, as our content is comprehensive and crafted with your needs in mind. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you are always up to date with us. Next, climate change is a global problem. It affects every person on Earth, the governments, and even our environments. Climate change has been linked to rising temperatures and extreme international weather events, such as hurricanes. The phenomenon also affects agriculture in Africa, since many countries in Africa rely on agriculture for their economy. Right. It's no wonder Bill Gates believes rich nations must help Africa fight against this threat by investing more money into clean energy research. A survey by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation found that rising temperatures might cut maize crop yields in Africa by 25% by the end of the decade. This crop provides 1/3 of the African continent's calories. Gates says that when temperatures rise above a specific threshold, the yield of maize significantly decreases. In addition to population expansion, Africa has to deal with climate change, which was undoubtedly brought on by wealthy nations, but has considerably more effects on impoverished, subsistence African farmers. According to Bill Gates, farming in Africa will suffer the most from climate change, and when they do, the world's food supply might take a blow. We have more on this story, so keep watching. Now, when the Times asked what ways healthier countries should help the developing world pay for adaptation to climate change, the response he gave was straightforward. Bill said, "We hope wealthy nations will contribute at least 0.7% of their GDP to climate adaptation. This isn't some huge price to pay." Okay. The climate crisis particularly hits the agriculture sector in low-income nations, and this is where our assistance must be concentrated. There's potential for new developments, and millions of farmers could gain from just one bit of research and developments. Nonetheless, Bill Gates stated the reality on the ground for us to know. He said, "I have to admit that with the pressure on European budgets stemming from the war in Ukraine, in terms of defense costs and electricity costs and refugee costs, the idea of maintaining a commitment to climate adaptation and to helping Africa in particular is not easy. But having stability in African countries is a good thing. If countries aren't functional, they won't spot outbreaks that can lead to pandemics." The effects of climate change are expected to complicate an already precarious situation further. Rising temperatures will cause severe agricultural disruptions in the coming decades, especially in tropical regions. Whether there is too little or too much precipitation, crops won't flourish. Warmer weather means more crop damage from pests. Even farmers in developed nations will see this shift. These threats are real, but developed countries have the necessary resources to deal with them. Would you agree one bad pest outbreak, a drought, a flood, or an illness may send the world's poorest countries tumbling deeper into poverty and famine?
Not surprising.
Therefore, when the effects of climate change start to hit us hard, many African farmers would go to work every day with nothing to come back home with. Climate change will have a disproportionately negative impact on African farmers at a time when the world desperately needs their assistance to feed a significant population. Demand for food worldwide is predicted to rise by 60% by 2050. Reduced harvests would strain the world's food supply, leading to higher prices and more hungry people. This would reverse the great strides made in the last half-century to reduce global poverty. Do you think such a moment will come when the world plunges into a serious case of food crisis? Tell us your thoughts in the comments section below. In addition, as Gates put it, all countries need to cease generating greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane gas that trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere to decrease global warming and the extreme weather events that come with a hotter planet. Gates argues that we must reduce emissions from 51 billion tons per year to zero within the next 3 decades. That requires developing and deploying technologies that will allow for the same level of economic activity as burning fossil fuels without contributing to climate change.
Good.
But he thinks it's unfair to ask how low and middle income nations to hold down economic growth in the name of cutting global greenhouse gas emissions. The United States and other wealthy countries must pay for research and developing into new methods to reduce carbon emissions across the board. According to Gates, the problem can only be solved by developing superior, lower-cost alternatives that do not contribute to global warming. Bill Gates is a philanthropist who has been part of global efforts to counter climate change by helping design new energy technologies. Bill Gates' environmental projects include governments and NGOs worldwide on climate change adaptation strategies, such as those outlined in the Initiative for the Adaptation of African Agriculture to Climate Change. He also believes that wealthy nations must help developing countries fight climate change. In terms of climate change, his dedication is unwavering. Check out our video on Bill Gates' Green Revolution to Combat Climate Change, and you will instantly understand this claim. To those who stayed along, thanks.